for those that are listening, do not believe dentists need to settle, that you have to have anything less, that you have to sell to people and manipulate people and sell your soul. I don't believe you have to work crazy hours and not enjoy your life and enjoy your team.
Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of dentistmetrics.com. Every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice.
Hello, ambitious dentist. Today, I have a very special episode with us. You know how much I enjoy having on some of my favorite guests from the past, and today I have one of those. Today, I have Mr. Alex Nottingham with All-Star Dental Academy. If you go back into the archives, you'll find an episode with Alex where he talks a lot about phone skills and getting patients in and developing a really great team mentality around your dental practice and how that can impact your business. So I'm really happy to have Alex back on today. And today we're going to talk about a really interesting topic that I have been mystified by in the past of how much it varies from one practice to another practice to another practice, and how dentists can successfully implement this skill into their practice. The skill levels vary from really low to incredibly high in this department. What we're going to talk about today is case acceptance. It's something that is imperative to a dental practice's success, but it doesn't seem to get talked about a lot in the dental industry, of actually getting a patient from coming into your office to paying for the treatment plan that you've put in front of them that you feel is best for them. So, Alex, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Yeah. So, just jumping right into it, we're talking about case acceptance today. That's the theme of today's episode. So tell me why. Why is it that there are so many varying levels of skill when it comes to case acceptance? We see it all over the place.
Well, it's interesting. I came out with this webinar, where we'll kind of send the listeners to, and I'm going to pick up a lot of the content from that. And the webinar is All-Star Case Acceptance, Getting Patients to Say Yes Without Hype, Pressure, or Selling. And we can talk about this on the podcast. And the link for that is allstarcaseacceptance.com, and that will enable you to go to the webinar. It's a free webinar. The question is, how do we see such a difference between case acceptance of one practice or another? Why is there this range of competency difference? And this is something that I've spent some time investigating, and that's why I released this webinar, because what I focused a lot on, as we talked about in a prior podcast interview, was on phone skills and scheduling. And so we can talk about some systems for case acceptance, but I always like to look at, and you as well as an accountant, and my background being a lawyer, MBA, so we share a lot of that kind of non-necessarily dental, but from a business perspective, because I want to look at analysis. Yeah. And you always want an accountant and a lawyer together, because they're always going to find problems. And not just that, looking at how things are come to be. And dentists can appreciate that we all can share this kind of engineer-like quality. Dentists are good at engineering from an artistic perspective. When you deconstruct a tooth, you go back to the root cause of the issue, right? Root. I mean, I guess that's a pun, but you get the point what I'm saying. Yeah. So we're looking to see what's really happening. So when you're doing accounting, and I love accounting. I remember in my in business school, my teachers wanted me to go the accounting route because I was really good at it. I really love accounting, and I just spoke at the Nova Dental School for the D4 kids, I guess are now, right? Yeah. Students and teaching them accounting. Half of them were sleeping, but a few people liked it. Assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. Very important. So anyways, so when you come into play, when you're bringing your firm in, is they're saying I'm having a problem. When you really look at the details, you're finding what they think the problem is has nothing to do with what it is. Mm-hmm. What they're saying, for example, I need more new patients, or I'm just not able to, quote, close them, right? Which is I'm not a fan of that word. The dentists that are doing it well are the ones that have great sales skills, and I don't. Or they just have a ton of new patients, and I don't. And I want to debunk some of those mysteries as we speak, because the answer is going to surprise you. When I did the research and I saw what's really happening and how to effectively get to the end point. And I'm making it even a little more difficult from what I'm proposing. I'm saying you can get a yes without having to push, pressure, hype, or sell. And you're like, how do you do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, leaving me on the edge of my seat.
And it can be done. And I think we all want that. I think dentists want to be able to get patients to say yes without having to be some salesperson. And that's also part of why dentists are sometimes reluctant. And that's the mindset of fearing rejection and what have you. And so to say to them, that's why a lot of sales training doesn't work for dental offices, because not only are they afraid often of confrontation with patients of their team or speak in their mind, but to now sell and to manipulate, that's going to be a no-no for 90+% of practices, and it's going to end up causing them to feel disempowered, and they're going to lose team members doing it. And that's really the first kind of, so I have 3 pitfalls of case acceptance that I talk about in the webinar, and I'm going to talk about it here, but I go into more detail there, and especially because there's visuals that I think will be really helpful for you to see. So and as well in the webinar as well, I go into my background, and we talked about in the last video or the last podcast, is that just for the listeners, and I mentioned I have a law degree and MBA, but my father's a dentist, right? So my focus was to become a Fortune 500 CEO, and I worked with companies upwards of 100 million when I was with Tony Robbins. But I kind of got into dentistry because I was able to help my father's practice, and it was so meaningful to me. And so I want to make that clear, because I love dentists so much that I look at every dentist, male, female, whatever, as like my dad, as a family member. And I'm like the black sheep of the family, because I'm like the only lawyer, right? They're all doctors, right? Mm-hmm. So even though the Juris Doctorate is a doctorate degree, we don't call lawyers doctors for whatever reason. So, but anyways, in taking my father's business from near bankruptcy, and I saw the numbers, like, again, like you do, Jonathan, how they were he had $200,000 in credit card debt and all this stuff. His manager had no idea what she was doing and ran up the debt, and they were in trouble, because you can only borrow for so long. And if you don't have cash, you don't have a business. And so working with my wife, who at the time was my girlfriend, and she was a Bloomingdale's trainer, okay, and sales manager, and taking those service-based skills that she learned from Fortune 500 and my work with Tony Robbins, we were able to develop a system to more than double the business, okay, adding more than $1 million within 18 months. And that was my inspiration of All-Star Dental Academy, and that's what informs me as to what's possible and where my heart comes from, right? And I made the assumption, and as you can see, Jonathan, both of us working with hundreds and hundreds of dental offices, is they're all very similar. I think you would agree. Dentists are good people. They really are. Absolutely. They want to make a living. You're just telling me about one practice that how do you have 6 employees and you're making the revenue you're making? How do you pay for yourself? I have so many dentists, as you see, they can't take a paycheck. And my father couldn't take a paycheck in the beginning until we transformed the practice. And it's terrible. But the thing is you have to have a business as a business. And so many dentists, they're coming out of dental school, they have no idea about these skills. And so it doesn't mean you have to be an expert at business, but you have to know enough and have people like yourself, Jonathan's firm, to be able to work with you to give you that business acumen to shore up the sides of the business you don't know. So if you don't know, somebody else is helping you, and that's part of it, right? You don't have to have all the answers. But anyways, they're good people, dentists. And Absolutely. So that's why they're and I do not believe dentists need to settle. I do not believe, for those that are listening, that you have to have anything less, that you have to sell to people and manipulate people and sell your soul. I don't believe you have to work crazy hours and not enjoy your life and enjoy your team. I mean, I have one dentist as part of, we have a mastermind group as well. One of our dentists makes 1.7 million and works 2 days a week. You can have it all. So it's definitely possible. It's not overnight fix either. It just takes time. Now with case acceptance, this is like the quote, the holy grail of things. I mean, everybody wants to know case acceptance, how to get more cases, right? So there are 3 pitfalls. And I talk about this in the webinar as well, but we can just kind of briefly discuss it here. And the first pitfall of case acceptance is you got to say no to sales. All the manipulation, hype, gimmicks, they don't work. Anything that's trying to get you to do sales, or even the word sales, they should know better in the health field. Stay away, run away from that. Because the key about sales is there's so much focus on closing, on techniques, on even there's some great research on the principles of influence, which I'm a big fan of. But some of these influence tactics can be somewhat exploited to manipulate people. And if people will figure it out when they're manipulated and you get them to do something that they didn't really want to do, they didn't have time to do it, they're going to come back and it's going to bite you in a very negative review.
They walk away with a pit in their stomach.
They walk away with a pit in the stomach. They don't come back, or they do something and then they're going to resent you for it and you get a very bad review or a lawsuit. Yep. Okay. And some of the things you may hear about are the word scripts. I'm going to give you this magic script, or the word closing, or you're going to hear, we're going to do mystery calls or something on you.
This one weird trick will up your case acceptance by 300%.
And you see so many email blasts going out about that. I'm going to teach you my magical script that's going to get you to do this. Please, it's ridiculous. And then even with the marketing, even if it sounds great, and then you go to your team and you try to implement it with your team, they're gonna feel terrible about it, and they're not going to do it properly, or they're going to eventually leave your practice because you're putting something on they don't feel right about. It's got to feel right. So the answer, instead of the sales pyramid where everything's focused on closing, we have what we call the VIP, or very important patient pyramid, at All Surgeon Academy, and the number one thing is rapport. Rapport is creating a relationship. It's empathy and trust with the person you're working with. If you like people, you're going to do business with them. I like you, Jonathan, and you like me. At least I think so. And I think that's why you have me back. We have a friendly relationship. I remember from the very beginning, you and I were Skyping. My business was a little further ahead because I started before you, and you were asking me questions, and we were helping each other out, little study partners. And now you've grown tremendously your business. You know, you're one of the top in the industry of what you do. And that's a whole nother topic we can have in the future when we talk about MBA skills. One of the MBA skills that I talk about is having an advisory board, having people, surrounding yourself by great people, having your accountant as one of your advisory. Anyways, so the answer to sales is to have a service-based approach. And that's something that we were, I would say, one of the first, if not the first in dentistry, to introduce a service-based approach. Now you hear a lot about service and rapport, and it's understandable. It's kind of an offshoot of what we were talking about. But that's not to say how great we are. I've learned things. I've taken the service base from the Fortune 500. And so now dentistry is starting to say, oh, All Stars right, service can work. But it's not me. It's not my idea. It's something that's been done by all the great companies, Apple, Zappos, and so on.
Yeah. And just conceptually, it makes so much more sense. Everything's so transactional nowadays. I mean, everybody's in such a hurry. Everyone wants everything to be instant. And so the people that can actually build a real connection, I mean, really think how many real connections each of us have it's a fairly small amount.
And so Facebook doesn't cut it. That's not enough.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. If anything, that makes it worse because it makes it where you're just looking on the outside and it's not a real connection. And building a real connection to a patient or a client or anyone out there. I mean, to the person who serves you coffee in the morning, it's that relationship at that point will be much more valuable just inherently because of the fact that it's so rare to have a relationship now. So yeah, I can 100% see how that's a great starting point is if you can build that rapport with the patient, like actually turn them into a person rather than another number on your schedule, that definitely affect case acceptance. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other key principles, I'm sure you've heard about this. This is from Harvard researcher Daniel Goleman, and his research has shown over the last decade that emotional intelligence is a greater predictor of success than intelligence.
That's interesting. I hadn't seen that. It makes sense, especially now, being in the fact that I think that emotional intelligence is something that not enough people focus on or even consider.
Well, think about this. If dentists are listening, your friends that clinically are not even close, they're inferior to you in every way, but everybody loves going to them. They're a sweetheart. They get along with their team, loves them. The patients love them. Their crowns aren't that great. They're okay. Nothing like you, but everybody wants to work with them. It's not some special script. They have mastered emotional intelligence. They have mastered rapport. People like them and want to be with them. And I see all the successful practices and you look around, the ones that have the same employees for decades, and everybody works well. Is the leader. This also goes to your vision, your leadership. Again, more MBA talk, great stuff, but still very important. Your vision and your leadership, and that all kind of will apply to how you relate to your team and how you relate to your patients. So again, these soft skills are tremendously important. And it's not listening to this podcast or going to my webinar or go into a seminar. You got to always be reinforcing this.
Without giving any big things away, but let me ask a specific question.
Yeah.
What is like one thing that someone can do? Like saying build rapport is obviously a bit of a nebulous thing because it's a big topic. It's a big topic. So, but what is one thing that a dentist can do today to build rapport with one patient?
Listen, I mean, it's as simple as be present with that person. Just stop trying to go, what are you looking out for that person? It's really about how can I understand them? How can I be with them? Really empathy, be with them, listen, close your mouth. And you'll see so often they will quote sell themselves on your treatment if you just shut up. Pardon my French. and because often we get nervous when we are trying to present something. Whenever you present or you talk, just close your mouth and listen. And so I think number one in rapport is listen. I think that's a very simple tactic that you can put into play. Listen with not just your ears, your entire body. Listen to them. Look at facial expressions, body language, and that will create a nice container of trust. Because if you don't have trust with that patient, you cannot move forward. You have no right to move forward. You have no right to present treatment if you have not built that.
And the patient can tell if your head is in the next appointment already. Like
that's right.
If you're thinking, well, I've got 8 more things to do this morning and I got to get through this one, and that happens every single day over the course of 200 work days in the year. I mean, imagine how many missed opportunities that is just from each appointment that comes through. So yeah, that's really good advice. So the first step is building rapport.
Well, you know what I'll do? I'm going to give you a system. I'm going to give you a system on this call.
Okay.
And then I'm going to give you the second, because again, in interest of time, I'm going to talk next about the second pitfall. And then we will end with the third pitfall, but I'm not going to give you the answer to that because the reason is it's very visual. And I will tell you what it is, but it's very visual. And I want you to see it on the webinar because it's hard for me to talk about it. You're just going to because there's a lot of numbers involved in research and it's going to go overhead. You have to see it. It's really impressive, but we'll kind of end with that and what to do. But let me give you the next pitfall and solution, and you're going to like it because I know you like it. So here's the second pitfall is no systems. There's no system. So you have that. We talked about service-based, we talked about rapport, we talked about listening. Great, but you have no system to do anything. And a system is a formalized process to achieve a goal. And both of us are big into systems. 50% of businesses fail within the first year. 95% of franchises succeed in the first year. Why?
Well, I would assume it's because the franchise comes along with a set of protocols and systems and software, and
of course
they've already figured out all the things that go wrong and set the process up to not have it go wrong.
That's why corporate dentistry is moving and growing exponentially, because they can do that. And the average practice can't. And I'm telling you, for those, I'm not against corporate and DSOs. We work with some. Our vast majority of our practices are private practices. And one of the things is the benefit of a private practice is you can move quicker. When you hear something that inspires you, you can make a change overnight. Corporate cannot. They have bureaucracy. And they're not going to necessarily spend the time and the skills I'm talking about, because a lot of them are short-sighted. They want to just turn over businesses for profit. They're not looking like, for example, a lot of the Silicon Valley companies are looking like long-term, like, Apple's more established, but and the Ritz-Carlton, but they built everything on rapport. Even Amazon, whether you like them or not, they have been doing a good job with their customer service and others. And they know that investment pays off huge, because they know the lifetime value of a client, which I know you teach a lot about and you analyze that, but they know that. And so they're not afraid to make that investment. But I think corporate dentistry is not at the level of the Fortune 500 companies at that point. There's a few, but most of them are just, we're turning over quickly and it's just about the bottom line. So they're going to gobble things up. So if you don't have a system, if you don't have a service-based approach, they're going to gobble you up. You're not going to succeed. But if you can apply a service-based approach, you will stand out and you will do very well. You will be recession-proof. That's another webinar I'm coming out next year about recession-proof dentistry. We can talk about that next year, but because we may very well be going into recession, and I've done a lot of research about the dentists that are immune to that, because I also did a webinar on dental corporate takeover, and the research I'm looking at and all these things is how can you be immune to the corporate takeover and to recessions. And you can be if you follow what I say, but you got to stick with it. The problem is people don't stick. So the system, there are 4 systems we teach at All Star Dental Academy, and I'm going to talk about one. In our last discussion, Jonathan, I believe we discussed a great call process, how we answer phones. I think we may have touched on the Triple S scheduling system, how we schedule. There are 2 others, the 5 Ps of the patient experience and the 5 Rs of case acceptance. So let's talk about the 5 Rs of case acceptance. And we talk about this in our online courses in more detail, but I'll just give you kind of the overview. We're not going to have time to go into each one in depth.
Sure.
But let me just show you the idea. On the webinar, I go in a little more depth. The course itself goes into more, but we can go in. It's all taking baby steps. Let's start here, big picture. Then we will encourage listeners to see the webinar to go a little deeper. And then from there, if anybody's interested in joining All-Star, they can do that. I'm not big on, quote, selling All-Star, because this is something that you have to understand in your heart, see what we stand for. And I believe in giving a lot of free stuff to make sure that it resonates. And if it resonates, then you can make the decision. I typically will not even talk to somebody if they haven't even utilized our free material. I won't take their money, because I want to make sure you understand and it resonates and you love it, because you can throw money at a problem. It doesn't make it mean it will fix it. Same thing with you. You have clients that you show them the numbers. It's great, but they have to do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to the our best clients are the ones that need us the most and that want our help the most. Not the ones that, I mean, I have so many people talking to me say, "Hey, you need to go out there and do Facebook ads and set up a web and set up these things or whatever it is." And the people that are needing me are finding me right now.
And the quality is interesting. I've done advertising because you think you have to, and the quality of client you get is poor, especially in Facebook and others, because they're not fully baked.
Right.
They're not ready yet. And when they're ready, then this is time to do it. So here are the 5 R's of case acceptance. The first one is rapport. We kind of talked about that. I could spend an entire day or week on that. Rapport is a master skill, and it's ongoing. And I gave you one suggestion, just listen. 80-20. Listen 80% of the time, talk 20%. Yep. The second is reviewing findings. So this is the order of how we do case acceptance. So we build rapport, maintain rapport, because we're building rapport in the great call process. We talked about in our last podcast. Then we want to review findings. What do we find? What of our analysis have we seen? We've been collecting data throughout with the preclinical interview, as we've been doing our examination or so on, but we review findings. After we review the findings, this is what we see and so on. We then review fees. And throughout each of the steps, we're getting permission. So we're building rapport, and we're always maintaining rapport. If rapport drops, do not move down the steps. Go back, build more rapport. Because if you get to reviewing fees and you have no rapport, you're just a sitting duck. So you're building rapport, and you're like, oh, Mrs. Smith, I have some findings to review with you. Would that be okay? Of course. And you say, okay, we needed to do this. And you also mentioned you wanted me to look at your entire mouth and make an ideal recommendation. I can do that as well. Here it is. So-and-so, does that look right? That looks perfect. Thank you, doc. And then you say, okay, I'd like to review fees with you. Is that something you'd be comfortable with today? Yes. Again, you can reword. I'm just giving you not a script, just whatever. It's got to come natural to you from a place of service and care. And the words will come. Don't worry about exactly what you say. It's more important not what you say, but how you say it, right?
Exactly.
So we review the fees. And then after reviewing the fees, and again, this is what we talked about before about listening. We provide this is what it will be, and pause, relax, stop talking. We tend to want to talk through, let them process it. And they'll give you an answer. They may give you an objection. If they give you an objection or question, good. A question or objection is an invitation for more information. Just let me think about it, and leaving is probably not where you would like to be. You want them to say, oh, I can't afford it, or I'm having trouble. And then if they say they can't afford it, you can then go into how you respond. But if you've done a great job in the beginning of the other skills that I've taught you in prior podcasts and other webinars, that you should not be surprised by that. You may have already known. You may be able to assess their budget early on by even saying, might even say, if appropriate, that you have a budget in mind. I mean, when you go to buy a car or house, you have a budget. Same thing with the mouth. What are you looking to accomplish? Budget. This is all stuff that we're going to be compiling in our dossier as we move forward. So the fourth step is we respond to any objections if there are objections. Now, if you overcome all that, let's say there's an objection on price, we show them we have financing options that works, then we want to receive payment. And again, let's go ahead and move to that. And receiving payment, you want to get something moving. You want to get whether it's financing is moving forward, whether it's down payment, something you want to receive as soon as possible to move that along. Because often what happens is we respond to the fees are fine, or they respond to objections, says, yes, I want to do it, doctor. And it's great. Well, we'll see you next time. Because we're so delighted they say yes, but we don't do the next step yep. and receive the payment. So the system protects you. You've been through it. Okay. And if the objection is they don't end up giving money, or the objection has not been satisfied in that call, then there's a follow-up process, what we call proactive follow-up. And you begin that process of a proactive follow-up and making sure that you continue that relationship. Because as time goes on, rapport will lessen naturally. And you want to keep that going.
I would love it if some of the practice management softwares could just visualize that whole process to show like when pieces of that process are not working as optimally as possible, so the owner could then focus on fixing those specific steps.
Well,
rather than having to worry about what's going on with everything. Because like you said, the diagnosis is hard on figuring out where does the problem lie. Is the problem that there is no process, or is it the process doesn't have the steps to clearly defined, and we don't have the people trained to be able to do it? And
that's the problem. The problem is implementation.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I can create for you 1,000 additional systems. I just try to make them as simple as possible. But if you're not going to train in this consistently, here's our model. Here's our model at All Star Dental Academy. And I could kind of dismiss a bunch of dentists off the call right now. That this don't even consider us. A is, if you want sales training, don't consider us, because we're not going to do that. It's not ethical. Okay. Number two, if you're not willing to train your team and stick with a training consistently, little by little, we advocate 20 minutes a week. That's all you need. That's all you need, 20 minutes a week, because you can only absorb so much. I was actually a study skills specialist in college, and I barely got into college because my SATs were not up there, but I graduated summa cum laude, 4.0 GPA. And I attribute a lot of that to knowing how to study. And you do little by little, because your brain can only absorb so much. Most human brains, some people have eidetic memories, but they're different. But the average Joe, like myself, okay, can only absorb so much. So 20 minutes a week, and then application. So if I give you these 5 R's of case acceptance, you honor every step. You absorb it slowly. You talk about it, and little by little, it starts to go. It's like any type of, the end of the day, it's about mastery, right? And so it's you master things little by little. Your subconscious mind has to process and absorb things. If you're learning an instrument or playing a sport, it doesn't happen overnight. Give an example. I've been getting back into tennis recently, and I've been working on my serve. And little by little, I'll practice, and then I'll practice, apply. And now, ever since I've been practicing, I've been executing better on the serve, because I've been practicing the right way, following a right warm-up protocol, applying it, but making one objective at a time. Plus, I define success not as winning or losing. I define success as, did I achieve this objective well? And then I move on to the next. We're so focused on the end game that we're not looking at what makes up an end game and how can I succeed at one thing at a time. So you might spend a month on rapport and maybe 2 weeks on reviewing findings. But the point is you're doing it little by little. And you're right, Jonathan. If you're not willing to train and stick with training, I don't care what new software we put into play. Look, people are spending $300 to $600 a month for practice management information intelligence software to tell you what's going on. And I'm not against them, okay? But you get it, and then what? Great, you have 1,000 broken appointments a day. Okay, great. And what do I do about it? Sometimes I think every dentist needs to have a CFO like your company, giving them the balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statements, all the analysis. Here's what's going on, at least quarterly, if not monthly. Okay, and what the trends are. You look at it and then get to work. Don't obsess about it. Sometimes the numbers is kind of analysis paralysis, and we're looking at everything we don't want to do.
Right.
You know what you do? Train 20 minutes a week. What do? You focus on this.
Yeah. What I tell doctors all the time is, if your numbers don't look right, which will be highlighted by the financial scorecard that we send out every month, then focus on one area where the number doesn't look right, and ask a question: why does it not look right? And that is meant to highlight that one small area. And then the way we do it is we have like a guide that goes along with our financials to say, hey, if this number is looking like this, these are things you should be looking at. And, here's the possibilities of what's happening. But most of the time, it usually comes back down to revenue. And revenue, the amount of
course.
So for me to be able to say, hey, here's how you implement a budget on supplies, or here's how you have a staff member be responsible for how much we're spending in supplies, or here's how you make sure that you're receiving all the supplies that you bring in. That's easy. When it comes down to a revenue problem, when it comes down to collections problems, I mean, I'd have to write 300 books to get to to maybe find the one problem with that. I could tell them, hey, go listen to 120 hours of Start Your Dental Practice, and you might find the answer there. But at the end of the day, it comes down to something like this. Like you have to have some way to be able to focus on doing one thing, but then you got to track what those results are. I mean, what we always say is, what gets measured gets managed.
It's true.
And you gotta start trying to fix things one at a time. And that having your employees be really high quality is paramount. Like you can't get away without having bad employees, and have a good dental practice. You'll never find an amazing dental practice with bad employees. Bad may be a harsh term to say on that, but you've got to have people there that can help you run the business, because Doc, you can't do it all. Like it's just not possible.
And you have to commit. You have to commit to a plan that's above even you and your emotional day-to-day mood. And part of it is training. Is you are going to have the best people, and they're going to be trained, and we're going to commit, rain or shine, every week, little by little. It's not the once a year seminar where I felt, okay, I've done my duty to training. No, this is a constant thing, and that's how you separate. That's how you become recession proof. That's how you ward off corporate dentistry. Okay, that's how you succeed. Is you got to commit to training, and it's got to be like, and those are the training and these skill sets that we're teaching. These systems are the backbone to the only way you make money. And you're right, Jonathan. Hey, making more money is the antidote to debt, to anything, really. I mean, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't. I mean, you should always try to be as efficient as possible. But if you're sitting here fretting over a $5 budget charge of your supplies, which dentists will do, but you're losing thousands of dollars a day because you can't convert a phone call or you can't present treatment, you're stepping over dollars to get pennies, and it's pathetic, and it's gonna just squeeze you. Dentists, listen to me. You got to stop thinking like the mom and pop, whatever. You got to think like a CEO. You got to think about it like an executive. You want to have the feel of a mom and pop, that love and support, but you don't want to run your business like a mom and pop where there's no systems. Everybody doesn't know what they're doing. It's not my problem. Nobody's trained. You're worrying about a $10 refund charge or this thing, and you're not focusing on the big picture, what's really making you money. And listen, this is the third pitfall for the webinar, which I'll just tease here, because again, this is really miraculous when I saw the research, and you have to see it visually. But the reality is you don't know the problem. And guess what? The problem is not case acceptance. The problem is not getting up and get enough new patients. And I developed this conversion black hole, and I want you to watch and see the black hole, and it will be enlightening, I suspect.
Interesting. You're leaving me on the edge of my seat again.
You're going to see it. allstarcaseacceptance.com. Register for the webinar. You will see it. We can talk about other things, but I was going to share the black hole with you, but we don't used to do the video. Now it's only audio, which is fine. So you can't see it. And it doesn't do justice to just listen to the black hole, because it's not going to make sense. You have to see it. I designed it visually, and you're going to see case acceptance is not your problem. But we can talk more about case acceptance.
Well, I think that's a good place for us to end it. We're running up on 40 minutes, which is about how long the episodes last now. So what is the URL to be able to get to the webinar?
URL, I mean, very simple, allstarcaseacceptance.com, ALLSTAR, caseacceptance.com. You can put a link in the podcast notes, and that's how you will be able to opt in for that. Perfect. And it's totally free.
Awesome. Well, Alex, we always appreciate you coming on. Your wealth of knowledge, your expertise inside of this industry is very valued. I always love having people on to give almost all of their great stuff away for free, because I know that means you've got the best intentions to help as many people as possible, which is what the goal of this podcast is. And you know, I guess my mission in life is to help as many dentists as I can to get into entrepreneurialism and to do as well as they can to be able to live the life that they dream. So thank you so much for coming on, my friend. And
my pleasure.
And
Thanks for
we'll
having
have
me.
you again. If anyone else needs to find out more information about All Star Dental Academy or yourself, what's a good way for them to be able to do it?
Just go to allstardentalacademy.com. So the webinar for just case acceptance, allstarcaseacceptance.com. But to learn about All-Star in general, allstardentalacademy.com. And we have other free webinars like on phone and scheduling training on our website. And you can learn more about different services we offer as well.
Perfect. Well, listeners, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming on today. Go to allstardentalacademy.com. Check out the stuff. It's really good, high quality. It's very polished. It's very nice. It's very easy to watch and to take in and to learn. So, Alex, thanks again for coming on today, and I will see you guys on the next episode. So that's it for today's episode, but that doesn't mean that the learning and implementation have to stop there. I've created a free report called The 15 Numbers That Will Make or Break Your Dental Practice. This report has been downloaded over 1,000 times by dental professionals. So if you want your free copy of this report that's going to outline what the most important numbers are in any dental practice, and it also includes how to look at your numbers, how to set goals, has a whole slew of really important information that is the culmination of all of my experience as a dental CPA, then just go to startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. That is startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice.